All right, I'd like to call to order the September 10th, 2024 meeting of the Columbia Heights School Board, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Michelle, will you do the roll, please?
Yes. Petway, here. Palmer.
Here.
Medeiros.
Here.
Granlund.
Here.
Poole.
Here.
Mueller.
Here.
Superintendent Stenvick.
Here.
Thank you. Our mission is creating worlds of opportunity for each and every learner. All belong, all succeed. We're going to pause for just 1 second. Our core values are community, excellence, collaboration, integrity, respect, courage, and innovation. Thank you. So it's going to be a technical day today, I think. Next, we'll move on to the agenda approval, adjustments, and announcements. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Mary, in a second?
Second.
Second by Jessica. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. That was a motion by Mary and a second by Jessica. Stephanie, in case you didn't get that.
Thank you.
Next, we have our announcements. On September 17th at 5:30 p.m., we have a work session in the community room. September 17th through the 23rd is Constitution Week. September 24th at 6 p.m. is a regular school board meeting in the community room. October 8th at 4:45 p.m. is a subcommittee on policy in the community room. October 8th at 5 p.m. is a subcommittee on community engagement in the training room. And October 8th at 6 p.m. is a regular school board meeting. You want to catch a board member, come to the first Tuesday of the month, starting at 4:45. Next, we have our employee and citizen and employee representatives. At this time, any citizen or employee may briefly address the school board. The board will listen to the brief remarks, ask clarifying questions, and if desired, request that the administration follow up. The board will not take action at this meeting on requests presented at this time, and time is limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Do we have anybody who wishes to address the board? Okay. Next, we have the consent agenda. The consent agenda includes the personnel report for September 10th, school board minutes from the August 27th, 2024 meeting, treasurer report for July 2024, and policy second reading for policy 514, bullying prohibition policy, including cyberbullying, 610 field trips, 620 credit for learning. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Julie, in a second?
Second.
Second by Michelle. Any discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have our discussion reports and information items, starting with reports from members of the board, and we will start with Julie.
I had a late couple of weeks. I did attend the policy meeting before this meeting, and I have started my review of June and July financials that were supplied in the last couple of board meetings, and we'll be getting that to management soon.
Thank you, Julie. Jessica.
Thanks. Well, school started, so we all got over that initial transition. We're all here, standing. Sitting, which we probably need to do after the transition back to school. So I'm spending a lot of time on that transition personally in my family. But since the last board meeting, I attended convocation, which many of you did too. It was very, Yep. Director Hull was there as well. It was a very exciting kickoff to the new school year. The staff band played, which is always my personal favorite part of convocation. And our very own Chair Mueller was honored with the Superintendent's Achievement Award, which was very exciting. But it was just great to see all of the staff back and gearing up for the new year. So I was grateful to be included and be able to participate in that. I also attended the open house at Highland, and I was able to get there early and see the distribution of some bike donations to the third graders from Medtronic? What are we?
We're just having technical
Okay,
difficulties.
I was like, did I misspeak
No,
something
you're good.
ridiculous?
I
Okay.
have
There's a lot of-
enjoyed seeing
there's a lot of
Stephanie's
looks going
face on the Zoom,
Oh,
so.
I see.
Yep. So,
Um,
Go ahead.
But we did have a very generous donation from Medtronic of bikes to all of our third graders, and so I was happy to be able to get to open house early and welcome some of the families as part of that bike distribution. I also attended the first Columbia Academy PTO meeting of the new school year just this week, yesterday. It's only Tuesday. And then I also attended the policy subcommittee before this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Sorry for distracting you. Laura?
Well, I mean, it's the start of the school year, you know, it's always a lot going on. I attended, of course, the convocation, which is always the second best. Honestly, graduation is a lot more fun, but convocation is a lot of fun. And Lorian, you were so deserving of that award, you know, your commitment to the community and the schools and just everything you do. You really do go above and beyond. So, and I really appreciate your leadership all these years.
Thank you.
I also attended the 916 monthly board meeting. We'll actually be having a board retreat coming up here in about a week, so that ought to be kind of interesting. I'll bring back some of the stuff that we're working on there. And I attended the subcommittee on not on policy, on community engagement, just prior to this meeting. I also thank you, Zena, for your time, that you welcomed the subcommittee on policy for being able to kind of go over a couple of things. And we appreciate community engagement. I still love policy. It's so hard, yeah. You know what I'm talking about. I'm just going to say subcommittee and just be done with it. That way I'm covered no matter where I'm at. Okay, well, thank you. That completes my report.
Thank you,
I
Laura.
can have people thinking I'm on policy.
It's fun.
I have my day.
Yeah.
Michelle? Yeah.
Thanks. So I also attended convocation, and congratulations, Lorian. It was nice to be there in that moment with you and see all the feels and all the support. Excuse me. I also attended open house at North Park, which was fun.
Eventful.
It was a great start to the year. I told everyone, I can feel it. It's gonna be fine, guys.
Yeah.
But everyone was so great. The teacher, staff, parents. I mean, there were people still coming. Despite the power outage and the storm. I mean, I could see the trees doing the wacky wavy thing outside. It was kind of insane. And then the lights were like, no, thank you. We don't, we don't want to participate. And nothing stopped. The teachers were still greeting families. Children had people to play with and things to do, like it's a school. So, yeah, we had fun actually. And then when it, broke a little bit, everybody was able to either leave or come or whatever. So, yeah, it was a good night still. And so I don't think people left and were upset by the power outage. School still happened. And yes, school started, and yes, big transition. And I'm excited that we're back in school. It seems like summer went really fast somehow now that we're in another school year. And so I'm excited to see what the year has to offer. And I also attended the subcommittee meeting on community engagement before this, as well as a meeting that we had with Superintendent Stenvick, so we can discuss some plans and things like that. That's all I have. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Mary?
Okay, so it's been a busy couple of weeks. Usually when people ask me, what is it like to be on a school board? I'm like, it depends on what month it is. And this is definitely that time. So, I want to start off by saying thank you so much to Superintendent Stenvick. She did, as has already been called out, she did meet with us, the members of the subcommittee on community engagement. What nobody else has said was, it was the first day of school. So, like your dedication and your willingness to meet with us, even on what is arguably one of the busiest days in our district, it was a great opportunity for us. Your flexibility and your availability are really helpful, especially as we're talking about things that impact the entirety of our community and our school community. So thank you so much for that time. I also attended convocation, as did everybody. We all have to call each other, we forget stuff all the time, like we all do. So I'm glad we can help each other out with that. Again, it was delightful to see Chair Mueller receive that award. I sat right behind her, and Member Medeiros was like, "It's Lorian," and I'm like, "I think you're right." And then I was just poking Lorian from behind. So, sorry, teachers, those things never change. I attended the open house for CA, but I got there a little bit early because I had to drop stuff off, and then I had to run up to another meeting. It was delightful to see the students come in and everybody really excited, and also to see my youngest son be a web leader and watch him be able to be a leader in that capacity and help all the new families and children, which is just really great. I attempted to go to the open house for the high school, but as I was coming home, the power went out, and I was on the phone with Superintendent Stenvik, and the roads were flooding, and I'm like, I'm just going to go home. So my husband was there already, and he went with my older son. I heard it was fantastic. I also had a chance to attend the second half of the varsity girls soccer team last night. Congratulations to our wonderful soccer team. It was a really rough game, but everybody played really, really well, and we won 3-2. So sorry, Bella, who was a former student of ours, who was playing on the other team. She did a great job, but we won, so go team, go. Also stayed for the first half of the varsity boys game, amazing. I did not attend the AMSD training this last Friday, but I watched the video, which is fantastic. A lot of really good information there. I would encourage everybody to see it if you have a chance. A lot of phone calls with community members, meetings, phone calls with members of the board, Superintendent Stenvik, and I'm positive I probably left something out, but it's fine because it's a lot. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mary. As all of you, I attended convocation, and thank you all for your kind words, and thank you, Superintendent Stenvik, for the recognition. It's truly my honor to serve the district and to serve with all of you, so thank you for that. It was a great day. I really kind of loved the little prank in the beginning leading into the band. So that was a fun twist on tradition. So I enjoyed that. Really just a great time. I love having the barbecue out front here, and just got to spend some time talking with teachers in line while waiting for food, and it was good to get to connect with people. I also was able to attend the first day of school at Valley View. Thank you, Superintendent Stenvik, for the invite. We were going to have our elected officials there, but they had rescheduled their time. But I was able to be there to welcome families coming in at Valley View, and it was really exciting. There were so many happy, smiling faces, kids running to school, a couple of really proud, maybe a little emotional parents, and just really well done by the district team and the Valley View team. Within just a few minutes of the first bell ringing, all the students were in their classrooms and they were all starting their routines. It was like just quiet as could be in the hallways. Like it was well done. So it was really exciting to see, and I'm glad to be a part of it. So thank you for inviting me, and to Principal Kuhlman for having me. I did attend the chair meeting prior to this, the subcommittee on policy as well. Mary was also at the chair meeting.
Thank you.
And I just want to say welcome back to, and welcome to all of our students, and really thank you to the families who are entrusting their students' education to us. And really a thank you to all of the staff and the teachers and the people every day who make the magic happen. I know that it's a tough job, and it's an important job, and I'm so thrilled that our community and our students have trusted us with their education, and I'm very proud of the team that we have that's doing that education. So here's to a phenomenal year. Superintendent Stenvik, you have a report and correspondence for us?
I do. In fact, I just have one topic to report on, and that is that the Minnesota School Boards Association has September as Minnesota School Board Recognition Month to build awareness and understanding of the vital function that elected officials, elected school board members play within our society. Columbia Heights Public Schools is joining other public schools across the state to recognize school board members and honor school board members for their commitment, your commitment to our students. Strong schools help build strong communities, and our school board devotes countless hours, what people don't know what happens behind the scenes, right? Countless hours of studying educational issues, looking at regulations, understanding new regulations, legal and otherwise, policies, finances, all of that to govern the district. So I want to thank each and every one of you for all of your dedication to Columbia Heights Public Schools. And at your seat, you have a certificate and also a token of our appreciation. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to information items. We have our employee handbook with Director Bennett.
Chair Mueller, members of the board, Superintendent Stenvick. In your handout was the draft of the 2024-2025 Employee Handbook, and annually this is brought forward to the school board. This year, the 24-25 handbook, it was reviewed by our school district employment attorney, and updates were made based on our legal review. Some examples include just elaborating more on school district policies, not just giving a brief definition, but more of what's considered a violation of the policy and reporting requirements. We made updates to contact information, updates to policy, took out some information that just pertains specifically to students. It doesn't have to be in the employee handbook. So unless there's any questions, it'll come forward on the September 24th consent agenda for approval.
Thank you. Any questions?
Just one.
Yeah, Laura.
Are there any substantial changes from last year?
No, it's more just legal, like the
Legal
attorney's saying
references?
kind of say it this way instead of this way.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, thanks.
Thank you. Great. We'll see you again on that item shortly.
Thank you.
Next, we have our Dreamline program update with Assistant Superintendent Nieway. Oh, and Mr. Burkus. Thank you. He wasn't on my list.
Chair Mueller, members of the board, and Superintendent Stenvick. I am here tonight with Principal Burkus to give you a brief update on the Dreamline program. I believe last year we were here again, right about the same time, giving you some update, and we took some of your questions, and I hope that some of the new additions, it will be provided some information about what has changed and what we're excited about this Dreamline program. Our mission, Columbia Heights Public Schools, creating worlds of opportunity for each and every learner. All belong, all succeed. I believe that all the core values will be represented in our brief presentation. And this is an informational presentation and no governance question. And I will pass it to Principal Burkus to continue.
Thank you. Chair Mueller, Superintendent Stenvick, and members of the board, I'm pleased to be here to have a chance to talk about Dreamline. I want to thank Director Nieway for the work he did 3 years ago now. This will be our third year of Dreamline. To become, his work helped us become one of the program partners of the SANA organization. You can see who else is, some very reputable organizations that we have joined to be members and proud members of the Dreamline organization. So Dreamline really talks about, I think, similar things to what we do at Columbia Heights. They talk about, of course, education, succeeding in our school and what we learn, but also in expanded learning, the worlds of opportunities, the after-school programming, and then, of course, building connections, that importance of relationships and community. So their values of what they're trying to do with empowering, improving, and uniting is very similar to us. So our mentor coaches are people that are recruited by them. They're young, they are mostly just starting out. Many of them, this is their first big job. They are recruited from local communities, so they've gone to school nearby, most of them. They are reflective of our diverse population as well. And they are going through ongoing training. So it's fun to see them. They have their PD days where they go, and then they also have coaches that come and meet with them at our school. We do have then, at our site, we do have our site coordinator and 2 Dreamline mentors and an intern that will be joining them. There is a regional program manager who oversees our school and other Dreamline sites. And then our Dean of Students will be our voice in that, our leadership in it for us this year. So we have the 4 that are working with us, Kalante, Kamani, Terrace, and Jeanette. We are pleased to welcome Kamani and Kalante back. Terrace will be new for us, as well as Jeanette. But they're a great group. They made great connections with our kids, and I know that we'll enjoy having them again this year. So again, as I said, this will be our 3rd year of it at Columbia Academy. We do about 20 to 25 kids that we identify per grade level, and those are the kids then that are assigned to a Dreamline mentor coach. They meet weekly with them. They meet, some of them, multiple days in that week. Some of them it is less than that. Might be just 1 to 5 days that they'll see different kids. We also meet with them to work on, see how things are going, always adjusting, making adjustments, improving things. We look at data. And with that, I think each year we've watched the program improve. And we're excited. Our kids that get selected to be in it again are excited. They love to go there. So when we talk to our mentors, our mentor coaches, we do hear, I think, similar things from them, that they find it a good place to be. They enjoy working at Columbia Academy. They feel connected to our, not just our students, but to our staff and our administrators as well, which we want them to feel like they are, because they are part of our staff. They work with our kids just as we do. So there's a mutual trust, I think, in that, which is necessary for the kind of work we do with kids. And they, like us, enjoy our kids, and that's fun to see. I was just talking to Kamani this morning, and I said, "Welcome back. You excited to be back?" And she said, "Yes, I'm very excited to be back." I said, "Why?" And she had that answer so quickly, said, "Because of the progress the kids made last year. I was so proud of them." And so they see that, and we see that, and we are able to point to particular students that have struggled in different ways to be successful, and to watch the impact of a mentor in their lives, and the way that school becomes not a place that some of them perhaps didn't know if they really belonged, or a place where they weren't sure they could succeed, and we see them start to blossom. So it's a great program. We're proud to have it, excited to go into our 3rd year with them in our school again.
So part of mentoring and starting the school year is our mentors, coaches, take time to go and observe different classrooms. And the teachers have been asked to select students based on a presentation that was done during back to school with clear criteria about what the program is and who the students they're looking for. And so right now, until about middle of first quarter, that's all that's happening. Mentors are getting to know teachers, working in the classroom, and then we're in that selection process to find students. From a funding standpoint, we do pay a portion from our Achievement and Integration Program. The fee did not increase. Sena is contributing $50,000, and Columbia Ed is paying $90,000 for the 4 people that are working with us at Columbia Academy. With every program, we're always interested in outcomes, and these are some of the outcomes that we're looking for when the program is in play. And, I was looking back at some of these that we've written here: self-awareness and self-management, social awareness and relationship skills, emotional resilience, and then engagement in school and after-school program. Sometimes you may wonder, how do we measure all this? But when we get to the metrics, you'll see that while we may not measure all of the behaviors, there are specific behaviors that we do measure to see if we're yielding any outcomes. In terms of total participation, it's broken by grade. The big number on your right side, 56, is in total, semester 1, semester 2, give or take -1. Compared to last year, the number that I had shared with you was about 45. So when Dwayne is talking about an increase 3 years later, we're seeing that there is a high interest and appetite for students who want to be part of Dreamline. So the number of students who are passing all classes, that's one of the outcomes that we're interested in. Why? Because these are students that we want to succeed, who may have their students who have potential but may sometimes not make the right choices. And so when we bring them and we work with them, academic as a focus is of high importance. So in 6th grade, you can see in semester 1, we had 15 out of the 18 students who were passing all, and then in semester 2, we went down by 1. Same thing for 7th grade, it was 16, then it dropped to 14, and then in 8th grade, it was 10 and went up to 11. So there is some interesting trends as you look at this data, and you may have some questions, but I'm sure we'll answer those questions in a little bit. So we also looked at the office referrals. As we say, we're choosing students who are in the middle. This particular data is looking at students with 3 or more office referrals. That is not to say those who are 1 and 2 are in great numbers. It's just that we do give them grace for being kids and students. So in terms of the numbers for those who had 3 or more office referrals, you can see by grade level, semester 1, 2, and 3. And there is an interesting trend, if you've seen, that those numbers during semester 2 go up. And rightly so if you've worked in schools. When spring comes, students get to have more energy, and so that happens. And so a question we're wondering about is why, with the support that we're receiving. We don't have an answer, but we're still exploring how can we get this trend downward. So then we also looked at number of students participating in after-school activities. That was, in the outcome, one of those interesting points. And so I think last year when we came, we did not have this information, and this is new that we've added. And so you can see by grade level, again, those who participated. In 6th grade, it's half of the students, and in 7th grade, it's a little less than, and then in 8th grade, that number goes down again. So interesting trends. And these activities are sports, it's the play, and it's everything that we offer. And the role of the mentors and the coaches is to make sure that students not only become well-rounded academically, but that we include them in some of these extracurricular activity. And so it did happen. One particular story that I remember, there was even one mentor who stayed after school to coach one student because she believed in that student and wanted to see that student succeed. lesson learned, the lesson learned have not changed. There is one, from last year to this year, students are still desiring this relationship with mentors, and we know why. The research is clear, and we see it evidenced in our students. And students are making improvement, as we've shown, and even when we look at the program participation. So what is new is that more and more students want to be part of Dreamline. That is good to know, even though we're limited in terms of how many we can take. So hopefully this year we'll hit that 20 to 25 to get the numbers even higher. In terms of change, some of the changes that were done last year and that will be maintained this year is that students will see their mentor by appointment. It was the first time we did it. It was free for all, and students were just excited to go Dreamline, but the administration there was able to reflect on that and put the appointment. And then this idea of students being students, we do see some externalizing behaviors, and that means they need additional support. And so the mentors will continue. Dwayne talked about professional development. The vice president of the Dreamline program has repeatedly mentioned to us that they're going to add more training because their goal is to take these mentors who are working with our students and be able to lead them into academics so they can go on and become teachers and hopefully come back into this community. So that's what they're doing. And last year, I think you remember we shared that one of the mentors who was on the picture, Kevin Arnold, ended up being an EL teacher at North Park last year. That is the end of our presentation. One more thing I will add, didn't capture it on the slides, is we always ask the question, are there any students exiting the program? Well, this past year, we had 3 students who exited the program. 2 after first semester and 1 after second semester. Even though Dreamline wants to see all the kids who get in stay until the end of the year to reap the full benefit of the program. So, any questions?
Okay, thank you. Mary?
Thank you so much for this. I enjoy hearing about how the program's been scaffolded, and the all of the data is just so interesting. I have 2 questions. When you said when they were how kids are identified, you said some of it is through observation in the classroom, and then other is students are referred by staff, I believe. Does that mean not just teachers, that other staff in the building who may be seeing these students in different capacities? Can you expand a little bit on that?
Yeah, I think if there is a student in the building that an adult feels like could benefit from Dreamline, they're welcome to give us that suggestion. So those can come from social workers, school psychologists, it can come from administrator. So it's not just teachers, but yeah, we're looking for students that are not necessarily getting something from another source. So an EL student or for example, may be getting some help for language, but if they're in need of something more than that, we'll look at it anyway, but we're always looking at what students are going to possibly fall between, the holes. And so kids that are in that middle range, because a lot of our kids, if they're a level 1 EL or they're a student with lots of externalizing need, probably are getting a lot of extra support. But there's a lot of kids that fall in between those that are EL or regular ed kids or even special education kids that aren't getting as much support as might be helpful. So we kind of weigh that in the equation. We have always a lot more students who we think would benefit from it than we have spots. And so then we're kind of looking too at, what kinds of needs are they, do we feel like we can be successful? And is there, again, is there another way that we can provide additional support, or is this really perhaps one of the few ways that we can really add to what they're getting at our school?
Thank you.
Yep.
I really appreciate that. I think a lot of times there's some really fantastic interventions we can provide, but we're hampered by the rules of who can make those referrals and how we can get those kids in. So I appreciate the fact that it's a well-rounded sort of approach to that.
Yeah.
Two other questions, sorry. I noticed that, and these are not the data questions. I noticed that you said the academic success was 41 students across both semesters there, for each semester. Did you see a lot of movement between that, or did that stay relatively, the same kids were struggling from semester 1 into semester 2?
So it varies, because remember we have 4 quarters, so we see the intensity being between second and fourth quarter, and so there is some variation. The data that we didn't show are students with 2 Fs, but that number is not as high. So the positive is that we're seeing many academic success.
Wonderful. And then, so now that we've had this for 3 years and we've had students go from CA into the high school, are we tracking any of the data in terms of, are they being successful at the high school level?
That's a great question. We have not considered that. It's one that we can certainly follow up on.
I think it would be really interesting.
Yeah, because one of the things that I think I shared earlier in the year was that our hope is that we see many of these students entering into the AVID program.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can look back because we have the data and the students.
Yeah.
And one more question that we were interested in, but we didn't dive there, was to look at, of the students who finished the year, how many are still with us?
Yeah.
Because we know that there is mobility. So that's something that we can add for the next set of data.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Michelle?
Yeah, well, and some of my questions were answered there, so thank you, Mary.
And I'm going to reach from my paper so I can write.
Going down that road. So my first question would be, I know you said 20 to 25 students right now, but are we looking into like adding more? Like, I don't know what the program allows for, like now or in the future, if we're gonna have, because it seems like we have a need for, more mentors and the students would love to have it. But will the program ever open up to more than that, you think?
Well, we'd love to have more mentors if we could. We'd welcome it. I think we found that with around, I'm going to guess that 25 kind of is reaching towards the maximum number of people that one mentor can see and really be able to follow up on and stay in touch with. It's a lot of these kids are in need of a strong relationship. So it takes time and it takes, frequency to build that. So I think, maybe we can push that up to 30, but I think it's also, when we are getting kids with need that we've noticed, I think it's probably more likely that we'd need more mentors, and we'd welcome that. I'm not sure what the financial side of that is.
Well, and that's what, just to tag on to what Michelle had said, I think, looking at, the more that we can collect data on this program and the success of this program and, how the students are doing, if they're in AVID or kind of as they're continuing on through high school. And I do think that, that you make a good point in terms of the mobility and, where they're at. But in determining, as all of you do every day, on assessing our programs of to what's successful and what's not, and where funding is allocated. Obviously, we really appreciate the partnership with the Senate Foundation and, with this Dreamline program and the dollars that they put into it, and especially the dollars they put in the beginning, which were, to help us get the program going. I think it's, what this board has said is let's put our money into the things that work. So continuing to gather that data, I think, is important. Yeah. Go ahead, Michelle.
I have one more. So looking at the data, we all have different ideas of what success is. Like, I'm not there with the students every day. I don't know what they struggle with, and those numbers may not, be poor. You know what I'm saying? Like, at the same time, I look at them and, there's decreases and things like that in some of them. And aside from the PD that the mentors can get, like, what other things are in place to kind of help them move, those numbers into, numbers that we, want to see? Because obviously we want better numbers than that, but, I know it takes time. I don't know, I always feel like the first year of a program is not really the first year, right? The second one is. And so now this year, you're probably seeing the data from last year. And so, like, maybe an optimal time to make changes or see where you could, like, put things in place to help it. Are there other discussions being had around that?
So we've had some discussion about the middle school and specifically on addressing academics and social emotional support. On the academic, we're doing an experiment at the Columbia Academy with the 6th grade classroom. So each class is about 82 minutes long. And so one of our reflection, meaning Principal Burkus, Superintendent Stenvik, Director Takro, and myself, we convene and discuss to do a pilot. Instead of having math and ELA to be 82 minutes long every other day, we are going with 41 minutes. So that math is every day and ELA is every day, so that we can see with that frequency and focus what effect will we get from the students learning every day. So that's one of the changes that we've made, and so we're going to look at that data and see how many of those students are in Dreamline.
It's a cohort of 6th graders, not all 6th graders.
Oh, got it. I have one more. I'm really sorry. I also wanted to ask, because I know I have to go by appointment, but I'm sure it doesn't interrupt, right, their learning, their day. So when in the day are they able to make these appointments to see their mentors?
Yeah, we work with their teachers on trying to figure out where that would fit in best. And so because, in the school day, they are in classes virtually all day, that we do have to pull them from class. But we try hard not to do that if it's a class that they are struggling in. Most classes, there is a part of the class where there's the new instruction and a time for them to, we don't pull from that time, so it would be later in the block for that. So we're able to, I think for the most part, find spots. For example, if our electives sometimes have to be the place that some of the students go if they're struggling in their core, then we'll pull from electives. So the reason we did go to appointments, though, was partly that, because sometimes students were self-selecting the time, and sometimes that would be, when, okay, it's math time, I'm going to go to Dreamline. So, yeah, so that is, I think, an adjustment that has been helpful for us. And
What is that time frame that they get to visit with them?
and that varies as well. So for some of them, most of them, though, is going to be somewhere in the range from 20 to 30 minutes. But there are some that we might go longer if it could be 40, 45 minutes. Some go, as we said, multiple times a week. Some might just do a check-in, once a week. And so we try to individualize it to what we're seeing, and I think that works well. We've learned, I guess, a few things over these last couple of years. So some of the adjustments, I think that we're making are helpful, not just from the standpoint of making us more effective in terms of our time management, but also just in terms of who do we who really fits well into this kind of program? Who does this really benefit the most? What are some of the ways that we can support our mentor coaches? How can we make them feel part of our school and not just working parallel to us? They're in our building. So as an example of that, our lead is in the lunchroom every day now, at the start of the school year, getting to know kids and seeing. So we're trying to make that very clear to them that we're one team of adults working with our kids.
That sounds like a great plan. So thank
Yeah.
you for all the
Yeah.
information.
Thanks.
Julie?
So obviously, this is our last year with Senna Foundation. What are we doing for next year?
It's not our last year, it's just our third year.
There's nothing, right? I'm sorry.
It's not the last year, this is just the third year, so we're continuing.
Oh, it's more than 3 years, because it looked like it was the last year on here.
No, it's not.
Because I was just hoping that we were upping. Is Senna Foundation the only foundation that offers this type of program?
There are other programs like the ACE program that also support students, but we're not working with them.
Jessica?
Thank you for the presentation. I had a similar question just about the duration of our agreement. So is this something we're working out with them on an annual basis now to
Correct.
continue that program every year?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. It's really exciting to hear about the successes of the program. I think it's especially exciting from the perspective of the board in the context of our new strategic plan, because as we're employing these programs that are really using promising practices, best practices, and we're seeing the success within different populations of our students, it's very exciting to see that sort of laid up against the framework of the new strategic plan. So we can look at a program like DreamWorks and the successes it's having for the students that are a part of that program and place it in the context of how we're trying to advance the mission of our district as a whole. So looking at how this program is impacting social emotional learning, academic achievement, sense of belonging, campus or school climate, looking at the ways in which our students are making different connections. When we were involved in community conversations around the new strategic plan, things like individualized education, equitable resources in the sense of making sure that each of our students in the district has the resources that they need as an individual to find success. This is a perfect example of a program that's sort of meeting all of those pieces of the strategic plan. And so that's just for me, a very exciting new component of learning about these programs because we now have that new framework to kind of put it into. So my question was around the data around student passing coursework. So you have that slide about the number of students that are passing all their classes at 56. And I know we talked about other ways that we are evaluating this program or looking at evaluating this program. Student participation in AVID, looking at, as Vice Chair Granlund said, sort of the bridge from this program into high school. But I'm just wondering if you can help us a little bit kind of contextualize this particular data point. So when we look at students passing all classes, we see the number 50 or the number 41 out of 56. Is there a point of comparison with that, like based on the profile of students that participate in this program? When you see the number 41 out of 56, like what does that mean to you? So how should we be thinking about this as a board?
Well, I think knowing the kids, I would say that we see that as promising. Obviously, we'd like to see it even higher. But we're talking about kids that we have seen not succeeding in school for a variety of reasons. And so one of the big things that we know motivates our kids is to get good grades. They would like to get good grades, but that doesn't mean that they all do all the things they need to do that, to get there. And so I think looking at grades as opposed to a standardized test, for our students, there's a lot of things we can learn from that. Are they putting in daily effort? Are they learning that there is a responsibility they have to get to class, learn, get the work done? Are they building those kinds of skills as they are learning? And so a lot of these students, that answer, would be, that's a struggle for them. So when I see that as a very, looking for context for this particular group of kids and the kind of students that go with Dreamline, I see that as a success, that we are heading in the right direction with a lot of our kids. Kids that we see sometimes late to every class, not doing their work, kind of just not engaging. And over time with Dreamline, with the mentorship that they get, that kind of behavior changing. The first place we'll see that is in their grades. Then at some point, we hope to see that in their standardized tests. But the first place is grades, and we really feel like there's meaning, real meaning in what we're seeing. So I don't know if that fully answers your question, but for us, I see it as positive.
Yeah, no, I think that's really helpful, and to hear you, describe that as promising, and then all of the pieces that come behind that. I don't think that everyone just looking at these numbers really sees what's behind that. So what's behind this number 41 is, a change in maybe like moving motivation into actions, right? That conclude with some academic success for the student. It doesn't necessarily show in this number that there's a strong relationship built between the students and their mentor, and what that does for, how students are seeing themselves in school, the ways in which they're working towards getting good grades in school, the change in those behaviors. So I think it's really helpful to hear that. I guess the like less black and white tangible pieces behind that number that does help contextualize why that number shows success for our students. So thank you.
Julie?
So feeding off of these numbers, I started looking at them, and so kids in the program, are they like 100% of them not passing all their classes, or is it like 3 classes they're not passing? What is, when it says there's 41, they're all passing all classes, but it doesn't tell me how many of them weren't passing all classes. You know what I mean? Like that beginning, that growth. Do you have those numbers, or can you describe a little bit about where kids start and how they get to this point? I mean, we know how they get to this point through mentoring, but
Yeah, so context matters. So
Yes.
the total number of students was 56. And of those 56, 41 passed all their classes. So the difference, it's give or take 11, did not pass all their classes. And from what Principal Burkes described earlier, who the students are when they're selected, these are students who, some of them struggle going to class, don't complete their work because they're not in classroom, or they need some strong mentoring. And so with that as a description of where they're starting, we could look back and pull their grades before, but we did not do that for this presentation.
So we don't know if of those 41, they were already passing all of their classes
Some.
prior to, but we don't have that data. So,
We have that, we just didn't do it in this presentation.
okay.
okay.
So is it safe to say that with those 56 students who were identified and participated in the program, that the majority of them were failing at least 2 classes
Or more.
or more?
Yeah, I would say that, yeah, I would guess that would probably be a fair number. I would say all of them were students that we felt were at risk in some way or another. And that wasn't just outside of their classes, that whatever it was impacting their grades, impacting their success. So, yeah.
And that's why they were chosen for.
And that's a big reason why we are looking for them. We have other students, obviously, that would meet that same criteria, but we're looking for students that aren't getting additional support that could easily fall through the cracks or slip through the net. Yeah.
Thank you. Did you still have something? No? Anybody else? Great questions. Thank you both for entertaining our questions. It was a great discussion. So,
Thanks.
thank you.
Thank you.
Next, moving on, we have our metrics for the strategic plan. Superintendent Stenbeck.
All right, good evening, Chair Mueller, members of the board. There we go. So this evening, looking at some progress that we've made with the strategic plan. Our mission in Columbia Heights is creating worlds of opportunity for each and every learner. All belong, all succeed. And this presentation aligns to all of our core values, which are aligned to the school board educational equity statement. So when we're looking at our metrics, a little bit of background and context. During the school year last year, Columbia Heights Public Schools engaged with, as the board knows, many students, staff, caregivers, community members to gather substantive input for our strategic planning process. We conducted surveys, focus groups, planning teams, and large school scale events. After the initial input was compiled into themes, the district launched a second round of feedback surveys to ensure accuracy. So we had a great deal of input and collaboration in this process, so thank you to everyone who participated, and ending up with 3 strategic priorities: all belong, all succeed, and creating worlds of opportunity together. So as we're looking at metrics, it's important to understand the timeline and what the definitions are when we mean in year 1, we're in the exploration phase. In year 2, we're in the installation phase, initial implementation, and then to full implementation. So the language that we're using for those timeline categories comes from the National Research on Network on Implementation, NERN. So those are defined there for you. And I think it's really important to have those definitions because people might interpret those stages differently. Some of the 29 items on the strategic plan are maybe more familiar to us, but when we look at installation, it's really building the infrastructure necessary to implement the program or practice, which includes building practitioner and organizational capacity. So we really needed to weigh whether we're at that stage. Can we start at installation, or do we need to start with exploration? Similarly with looking at, are we at initial or full implementation? And those definitions are there. So the main overarching statement that the board approved as part of the strategic plan is, with a steadfast commitment to equitable practices and outcomes, safe and supportive learning environments, and strong fiscal stewardship, Columbia Heights Public Schools will focus its efforts on the following strategic priorities over the next 5 years. And I wanted to include the headings of the strategic priorities of all belong, all succeed, and creating worlds of opportunity, because a lot went into it, and underneath each of these purpose statements and strategic priority areas are 29 bullet points. Well, not under each, total. 29 bullet points total that we'll take a peek at in a moment. But really looking at all belong, what does that mean, right? And so what this group, along with all of the stakeholders, came up with is enhancing a culture of belonging by ensuring a supportive environment for students, families, and staff that welcomes all individual identities and provides access to opportunities, resources, and experiences. All succeed, what does that mean? It means strengthening integrated education systems by delivering equitable and culturally responsive instruction for every student in preparation for college, career, and life. And then lastly, creating worlds of opportunity together. Maybe I should italicize that, right? That means elevating inclusive and connective relationships by expanding meaningful engagement opportunities with our families, staff, and community that value and amplify all voices. So those are kind of the big picture statements, and now we'll get into some of the more detailed. This is the template for each of the 29 performance indicators in terms of measuring. As you know, some of the 29 items are more qualitative in nature, all belong, so we want to capture a sense of how people are feeling and what their satisfaction rate is. And some of them are more qualitative. We're looking at, or quantitative, sorry. Some of them are more quantitative, meaning that there's an actual growth measure that we can make. There's a proficiency measure that we can make, right? And so this template of the performance indicators and the metrics encompasses all of that. So taking, something broad into something concrete. So for each of the 29 indicators, we will be listing out what are the opportunities for that particular indicator. What do we offer here in Columbia Heights? And when we offer those opportunities, who's engaging? What's the participation rate? And how can we break down that participation by demographics, for example? And then with those opportunities and participation, what was the result? And if it's more of a survey type, what are people's level of satisfaction? What are people telling us about their interaction and experience with that opportunity? And then we list kind of who's responsible, right? Which department will be reporting out on that. So the board has the full 20-some page document in board book. But just as an example, I'm not planning on going over all 29 in detail this evening. But as an example, you can see priority area under all belong, in the category of student relationships, 1A, which was that first bullet point that the board approved. Students will be valued and included at every level, allowing them to grow self-advocacy and leadership skills. So how do we measure that? Well, there were, a management team expanded, other people, other staff in the district got together multiple times over the summer to both brainstorm, discuss, and then narrow down and make some decisions on what do we already have at our fingertips, and can we modify some of those pieces? And so what are the opportunities that we have in this area? Well, all of our students do goal setting with their teachers, so following up on those goal settings and connecting on those goal settings. We have the Naviance tool. I put it there in parentheses because 5 years later when you've moved away from a different tool, so that this is our first iteration of it, so I probably will be taking off specific names of tools because we've all been there. But we do currently contract with and have for since I've been here, Naviance, which is a post-secondary planning tool. And so we can look at the student engagement and participation on that tool. And then we have different student leadership opportunities, so engaging with them. So again, when this comes back as metrics that we'll be reporting out, the schools, so primarily the principals, will be reporting out the participation rate, including demographics when applicable and available, and then they'll report the results. So with this one, there'll be both, the quantitative participation rates and then also satisfaction with those leadership opportunities, for example. And then you can see the implementation timeline. If we're able to move beyond exploration and begin installation and begin initial implementation, those will be amended. So we haven't done this one yet, so that's what we're looking at. You'll notice as you go through the 29 items, they don't all start at exploration. Some of them may start at installation or initial implementation, just depending on what the individual metric is. So I am going to go to one that has a little bit more detail in it, I think. And you can see they have a number and a letter, so 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, for example. So moving into, I'm going to look at 1E, which is on the screen and in your board book, under family relationships. Families will experience a sense of belonging in a supportive community. Well, we already have an annual climate survey where we are collecting that data. So, and we do collect that data. We can look at the participation rate of that climate survey. And then when it comes to a specific survey question, I see blinking on the screen, sorry about that. The question is, do you feel connected to your school community, i.e. you receive regular communication, you were invited to participate in school events? So that's an example of one specific question on the climate survey that we will be reporting out on to address this particular performance indicator, and so on and so forth. So you can see as we go along. So this really is the work of management. However, we've had really good conversations at the board table about working collaboratively, not only to create the strategic plan, but also I am very interested in seeking feedback from the full board. And what I'd like to do is give the board some time to review and digest this document, and then at a later date, because we are in such the initial implementation phases, I'd prefer to get it right than rush. So at a later date, we'll have an opportunity for the board to provide feedback on particular items.
Yeah, and if I can jump in.
Thank
on that
you.
too. Yep. We had talked briefly at the chair meeting, kind of about the process on this. And as Superintendent Stenvick said, this is a management tool. We don't approve this. This isn't going to come back to the board for board approval. We approved the strategic plan. And so it's then delegated to management to determine the matrix in terms of which that is being measured. That being said, this has been a very collaborative process, and this board has been very involved, and we, I think, are very passionate and engaged in making sure that the strategic plan not only is right for the next 5 years for our vision, but that we are comfortable with how data is being gathered and how that's being reported to us as the board, as we have that accountability piece, right? And so while, as you take a look at this, and we will have this on a work session agenda so that we can have discussion and conversation, take a look at this, and not so much about like wordsmithing or the semantics of the details, but does this plan and the nature in which it's presented, does this meet your expectations in terms of what you want to have measured and how you want that to be presented to the board? Because that's ultimately the feedback that I think that we need to provide is, yes, this meets our expectations in terms of the nature of what our goals were in approving the strategic plan, and this will meet what we need to see presented to us when principals and schools and the directors come to present on the strategic plan, that we feel like this is the substance that we're looking for so that we know that expectations and goals are being met. So look at it with that lens so that we can have the discussion on that. Yes, Superintendent Said.
Thank you for that. And I will just note that in your Friday update, you'll get a new copy of this because priority area 1H, you'll see a need to, there's a little error there. It's obvious when you look at it. It's been remedied, but not since it got into this PDF.
Yeah, so you take it, make notes. I think we have it tentatively scheduled for the October work session so that we can come full circle back and provide. Superintendent Stenvick is very interested in having our feedback and making sure that we are all, have the buy-in that we feel comfortable with as she moves forward with this. So. Jessica.
Given the lens that you just outlined for us, I have just a couple of questions that I think will help me apply that lens to the document. One is around, you talked about like reporting out on the metrics. We're coming from the old strategic plan and reporting process, and so like that's what I have in my head, is the idea that we would continue something similar to that in terms of reporting out on the strategic like directions around these metrics, or is that still in discussion, or is there another framework that's being discussed for that?
So likely the schools, what we've moved to over the last few years is the elementary schools presenting together because they have so much in common, and then secondary schools presenting together. And so they would present their portions, and then different directors have their portions as well. So, I think it's going to look a little bit different than what we've done in the past, because we want to go deeper with what are the opportunities, what are the results, who's participating, so it's going to be a little bit different, and we'll probably use this template or something similar to this template and fill in each of those areas as the report.
Sure, but we would still have some regular reporting out on these metrics to the board from those individuals.
Yep, and that's why that fourth category is reported by.
Okay,
So
yeah,
those
that
are
was the part I wasn't sure, like, reported by to whom? So
That's to you
Yes.
or to us?
Yes.
To the board.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, and I do think that, think about that too, because I do know that, maybe year one, everything gets new, right? And then as year two and year three happens, you can see it. I think we've seen it and they're like, well, we said the same thing last year. And we said, but trying to make sure that we are getting the information that we need, the substantive information that we need and how that's presented to us. I think just for every board to be able to communicate that to the superintendent in terms of like, this is meeting our needs and it's not, but yes, it's presented by those people to the board.
Thank you. And then my other question is just around the implementation stages, because I'm not familiar with the NERM model.
Do you want the packet?
I'm good.
There's good graphic organizer.
So what I was looking for in the definitions is like, I'm thinking in terms of like the life cycle of implementation, where there would be sort of a, evaluation reset of some of the metrics, or looking at how the pieces of those fit together. And I noted that in the definition for initial implementation, it talks about with attention to using data for continuous improvement. And so is that where we should be looking sort of, is that the stage in which we would be like thinking about that continuous improvement piece?
Oh, I think we're always looking at continuous improvement. So we wouldn't put any of continuous improvement efforts on hold. So
we're not, I guess what I'm getting at is we have a lot of, the goal is to get to full implementation for each of these metrics. So is it that, we get to full implementation and like, we're done? Or continuous improvement is interwoven throughout that entire process, including when we get to full implementation, that we're still looking at.
yeah, it's really around, in terms of rolling it out, the implementation timeline, it's really about who's been trained, have those expectations been set, have 100% of our staff been trained, and then are we as admin following up and monitoring that implementation? So that's where some of them, it's like, well, this group of folks have been trained on it, but I couldn't say it for everyone yet, so like the new phase, the current phase that we're in for science of reading, for example. We know we're in phase 1, next year we'll be in phase 2, so that's what really that timeline is about. We're not going to wait to do some, we do these annual assessments, student achievement assessments or proficiency assessments, so those will be reported out and not waiting. But we just know that with some of the priority areas, we haven't yet trained every single staff member on it and set that expectation, and so it's going to take some time to do that.
Thank you.
And I do think that, and this can be, some more conversation that we have, one of the things that we talked about with our strategic planning process is having the ability to be a little bit nimble, right? So that if we're finding that something isn't working, to have that conversation, and so that we're not just reporting metrics that aren't working. So I would say, having the board and the superintendent in conversations about, because we don't want to be tied to a strategic plan just because it's our strategic plan. We find out like, this isn't measuring what we thought it was going to measure. This isn't meaning what we thought it was going to be, what it was going to mean. And I think as you're kind of going through those processes that we kind of work collaboratively to make sure that it's still the intent of the design.
Well, my lens on that is that the 29 performance indicators that are board approved are Vision 2030. The metrics, if they're not meeting our needs, can be nimble.
Yep. Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
That's what I needed. Thank you, that's helpful.
Yeah. Any other questions? I just want to say thank you for putting this together,
Yeah,
to
this
you
is
and your
great.
team. I know that this is, we can see how much work it is just by the sheer volume of it, and it's a lot, but it's important. So thank you to you and your team for the work that you did so far on that. All right, next we have Subcommittee on Community Engagement. Is that you, Vice Chair Granlund, Chair of the Subcommittee on Community Engagement?
It is. Thank you so much. So at our last meeting, we had asked for, well, I'm sorry, not at our last meeting. At our meeting with the superintendent, we had asked for the information of what did it look like when this was created. And it's humbling to think that this was originally created in March of 2020. It's, so to see how we have taken some of those things and been nimble with where we started has been really fantastic. And it's always great to take that opportunity to look back. At our meeting, just prior to this one, at our subcommittee meeting, we talked about what our goals were and whether or not we needed to, as a board, adjust those. And so I think we came up with a few recommendations. Unfortunately, my brain only is able to do these things like treatment plans. So, I think we have 2 recommendations in terms of having goals for our school board in terms of what does it look like for community engagement. So one of the goals, the main goal would be to amplify community voice. And what does that look like? And how do we increase visibility and accessibility? And how does that look different than it did originally, right? One thing that we had originally had in that subcommittee and that had come out of that was making sure that we were actually attending different things. So there was a little bit more accountability. We would talk about it as a group and we would sign up for things in the moment. And I think that really helped because we knew we could plan. Okay, so this is the thing that's coming up. And I think that as a group, we had talked about that and adjusting it a little bit. So our hope would be that we would have people pick 2, board members pick 2 different activities in the schools, one of which, if you have a child in the district, does not involve your child directly. So for instance, I don't have a kid that plays soccer, but I did attend the soccer game last week. So those sorts of things. The other addition that we're hoping to recommend is also to include one activity in the community. That's Columbia Heights, Hilltop, Fridley, and really making sure that we are going out and expanding and meeting our community where they're at. The other piece that we had talked about would be, thinking about how can we more educate the community on what a board does and what our district is doing. And so we have a couple of different ideas about that. Essentially, we really want to promote our school district and again, make ourselves available, not with the thing that you have to come in and put your foot on and, the wonderful banner thing that we have, but being more present and embedded in those different things. And again, we're hoping to do this not as a burden. We don't want to add more to people's plate. And I know that was a reason why we did remove that portion of it 2 years ago. But we want to make sure that we are actually, as a board, present in different ways. And we know that asking the community to always come into our meetings or come into where we are is not, it's not working for our community.
Right.
And we want to make sure that we are, again, focused on our outreach to the community so that they know that we're here and that we're listening and we're responsive. This board, I think, more than other boards have been, not even just here, but sort of everywhere, we are really, really dedicated to listening to the voices of our community. And that's not just parents or caregivers that have children directly in the community. That is our staff, our families, our all of the companies that reside in our area. And so making sure that everybody knows, and especially families that don't have kids either, and students, to make sure everybody knows that we actually really, really do care that they all matter. So all means all. So we had talked about these things. I will write them up and send them to Superintendent Stenvik so that we can have those in our Friday packet so we can sort of see what these recommendations are. If there's any feedback, we would love to have that as well. The other thing that we would need then is, just like when we first implemented this, we had Dawn at the time provide us with what are the activities coming up so that we could all see what was coming up and we could schedule some of them. So we would ask for that information as well, just so we can all make a decision that works in our schedule too, because again, we do serve our community, and also, this is not anybody's full-time job, except for Superintendent Stenvik. So, and she's excluded from the big two. She goes to lots of things anyway. So that, I think, did I miss anything? My wonderful committee folks.
I think you covered it very
Not succinctly.
I think you covered it very well, I know that we were talking about perhaps, in addition, doing the follow-up, like a survey of ourselves on how well it's working. And probably, although this might make for a longer evening, the last meeting in December probably would make the most sense, because then we're going into a new, potentially new board in January, and the information probably won't be very useful at that point.
Thank you. Yes, that was one thing I did forget. Because data is king and we know that. The other piece would be to evaluate this on a biannual basis, so twice a year. And the hope would be that we would have the pick 2 and 1 by semester, so that we know that there's this amount of time. So over the course of a year, we would want to have board members attend 4 total activities, 2 of which would be not involving something that their child is in directly, or however, and then 2 in the community. But again, it's broken up by semester so that we could talk about it and evaluate how it's working within that time frame. So,
I mean, I guess I'm gonna print out or, whatever we give. We'd also give definition to what those events mean. So we gave specificity to, school events, things like that, not district things like the convocation, or, like that. We had made joke to say, well, that's like saying, oh, and I went to a board meeting. There are things that are outside of, board activities that we are expected to be at. That's kind of just what we're here for. So we're kind of asking for those things.
yep.
And one other thing too is one thing that we did have some discussion on was how we're going to measure this with regards to is it actually improving our community engagement, and how we might want to be able to look at that, or how maybe we have to report on that. Are we bringing the community voice in, to the board table and then sharing that out, for example, and how that would possibly look.
Questions? I have one question. and I'm looking at you guys, and I'm not saying that you have the answer to this question, but, you know, we formed the committee on via resolution, right, or the subcommittee. With the additional or revised goal, do we need to update the resolution or have a new resolution that would have the new goal embedded in that, Laura?
I actually did recommend that we do put this on the agenda for the board approval, because the mission does change, even if it's only kind of slightly.
So we would need to draft a revised resolution and then with the new goal embedded in that.
Yep.
And so, would one of you be able to do that? And I can assist if needed.
Yep.
Yep.
I'm happy to do that.
Okay.
So again, expect in your Friday packets sort of a more clear outline of what we discussed and what our recommendations are. And we're looking for feedback on that. But again, I think, you know, we're here talking about a lot of data all the time, and it's really important, I think, that we gather more data on this as well as the subcommittee has continued to grow. So, thank you.
Great.
I have
Julie?
a question, Mary. So is this a recommendation just for the committee? Or is this? For the board. Yeah, for the whole board?
Yes.
Because I think we're going to have potentially board members who have jobs, who have other responsibilities outside of work, as well as, you know, just in general may not be able to participate in a lot of things, like me, who does not have children in the school district. And so I appreciate, I do go to some events and I do do that, but I'm a taxpayer. I'm not a parent of a student. And so I may come at it at a different level. And the expectation, I'm not sure I like the requirement. And I'm not saying I wouldn't do it. I'm just saying that if we're going to put it in legalese, I'm not sure that's fair to all board members who may not be as active as all of you because you have kids going on, you know, and doing all this stuff. So it's quite easy to you're here. I'm not here. I'm working, so.
So that's a great question, and the expectation would be for all of us at the board. When, you know, in some respects, I think that expectation of going to one thing that your student is not, your child is not involved in, makes it maybe a little bit harder for those of us that are parents within the district, because then we have to really go and look at, okay, so, you know, I can't go to the synchro, like, I can go to the synchro thing, but that would be extra, or that I would need to do something else. Whereas I think somebody who, now Lorian, and you as well, maybe it has a little bit more flexibility because you have all of the choices, whereas we may have to pick and choose a little bit. The other piece is one thing that I think we've consistently heard from our school community, and that is all of the stakeholders, that they really do want to see us more at different events throughout the district. And they want to see us and engage with us and find out more about what we're doing or ask us questions. And I think really the subcommittee was born out of a desire to increase our accessibility so that people don't stop at those doors and say, oh, I can't talk to them because they're the school board. We have a lot of families that are coming in from different areas, and there are different expectations and interactions with elected officials. And part of our community outreach, I think, has to be also showing people that we are not scary people, we're easily approachable, and that their voice matters. And over the years, even before we had the subcommittee and as somebody on the board, when it was, if you want to talk to the board, you come here and come to a listening session, and that was the only time, we didn't get very much engagement. But being present in the community shows the community that we do care. We care about things even if it is not directly impacting my student or your student. And it provides sort of a bridge to the community and make it a little bit easier. So
So are we going to reduce the amount of liaison responsibilities so that people can, I'm just saying that we're expanding the responsibility of the board, and we're elected, so we're not responsible necessarily to, each other. You're not my employee, I'm not your employee. I'm responsible to my constituency. So when it comes down to it, I would serve my constituency in the best I can, and maybe they're the ones that have a house and don't have kids. Maybe there's the 20% or 30% that are old people that don't have. I'm just saying, we're adding more responsibility.
Yeah.
So we're not adding more responsibility. As liaison to Valley View last year, I attended some Valley View things, and that was in that capacity, right? And my child clearly doesn't go to Valley View. As liaison to, the cities, we do those things. That's a city, thing that we can go to. We definitely thought about this, right? With keeping people's schedules in mind, and things like that. We are school board members. Yes, we were elected, and we also signed up for this. We signed up to be participants in our community and the school district. We literally represent a school district first. So even taxpayers who may not have students in the district still are stakeholders in this district. You have access specifically to a demographic that some of us don't. I think it's important for you to go to school events so that you can educate the community that we may not speak to on certain things that you see or hear or understand in that capacity. I feel like if we're not present, then we can't walk away with, good information for people. Yes, board meetings have that, that concrete, financial things like that, but there's certain things that you can't get sitting at the board table. And we want to make sure that we are giving ourselves back to the community in the way that we need to. We all have jobs. We all have lives and things that we do outside of this, on top of us having children in the district. It's not easier for us. It puts more on my plate for sure to show up to other things too, but it's an added effort that I knew I was gonna take on as a board member. And I take that very seriously because, I feel like that's how messages get lost. I feel like that's how we have misinformation and things like that if we're not involved in the community that we're asking to support us. And so I also don't think that 4 times a year to go to one of the school events, I mean, they're at all different times. Some of them, they range from during school to
I totally agree.
after school. So there is, I feel like it's accessible for everyone to be able to do that. And when we were thinking about it, we were like, wow, is that putting a lot on people? And then we were like, well, no, like we need to do this. If one of the things from our community is that we're not, accessible, or they don't know what we do, who we are, and how we're involved, like, well, let's show them. I just feel like when we're getting those assignments for liaison or things like that, like it is for everyone, and we have to hold ourselves accountable for that part of being a school board member too, because it is about more than, Tuesday nights and listening to information and things like that. Like, we can't make truly informed decisions if we're not getting information from everywhere, and being able to give that information back that we learn here. So I do think it's important, and I really don't think that it's more responsibility. I think that it just, I think that it just comes with this, and we just haven't been doing it.
Well, and I do think that, I think that quite honestly, most of us have, or all of us have met this requirement.
Sure.
Just hasn't been intentionally defined. And I think, and Laura, I'll look to you as, you and I have spending collective, 20 years on the board between the two of us.
Yes.
That we've gone through different renditions of this, and quite honestly, there used to be more requirements.
Oh, yes.
And when I first started this the subcommittee, there were a lot more requirements. But it used to be, we would all have to sign up for listening sessions, as Mary. So Tuesdays before a meeting, we would meet out in the hallway there and be available with a director for anybody to come in, and we would have to do that on rotation. We used to attend school conferences, and some of this got thwarted due to COVID, right? Conferences went to Zoom. We've done Zoom listening sessions where, kind of, again, meeting people where they're at. So I think through the subcommittee, over time, there has been these things that we have brought out to say, that how do we govern if we're not in conversation with the people that we're representing, as well as not participating in the body in which we're governing. And so when the subcommittee on community engagement was created, previously we only had a subcommittee on policy. And looking at that kind of, again, historical moments, I had looked at that and said, well, our role, our duties as a school board member, as defined, is governance and policy. So we're only hitting half of that when we talk about the subcommittee on policy. So we created the subcommittee on community engagement to say, now let's govern as well. And part of that govern is listening and participating, listening to constituents, participating in the body that you govern. So from what I'm hearing from the subcommittee is that there's a total of 4 events a year, 2 school events, and 2 community events.
So it's 4 school events, broken
6
up.
events total.
So 6 events.
6
okay.
events
So
total.
6 event total.
Yep.
2 school events a semester and 1 community event a semester. And of those 2 school events, if you have a child in the district, it would be, one of those would be something that your child is not participating
Yes.
in.
Okay.
So looking at a period of
Sorry, Jessica.
4 months,
I don't have kids at every school, right?
Yeah.
Not yet.
Well, and I do think that there has to be some understanding,
Yep, And it's
for
a
that, but-
recommendation, that's another thing.
It's a
It's a
recommendation,
recommendation, not a
yep.
requirement.
Well-
Like I heard you say requirement, but it's not
But-
required.
So what?
I thought it was getting codified. That's what I
Well,
was.
so I think what the resolution, one of the things we talked about in the resolution is the goal that they had talked about in the beginning. This, again, it's kind of like what we talked about in the policy subcommittee of terms of policy and process, that we're gonna update the resolution with the new goal. This recommendation coming from the subcommittee of saying, hey, you know what, it's really important to, again, participate in the body in which we're governing, getting ourselves involved in the community, and reporting out to our community. So the subcommittee is recommending that every board member does these things, right? Now, I can tell you, as you said, even as board chair, I'm not your supervisor, right? Not your boss. So if you can't, choose not to follow the recommendation of the subcommittee, that's on you. Right? Like, we are saying that we collectively, we're gonna take the recommendation from the subcommittee, we're gonna do our best at that. Maybe what that results in, and again, I won't be here, but the then board chair says, hey, you know what, Laura? I've noticed that you haven't been able to attend any, events within the community. Is there a barrier to that? Is there something I can assist with? This is kind of what we agreed to as a board. Not like we can fire you if you don't do it, right? Because the voters voted you in. So, but I do think it's kind of like, how do we collectively lead? And what just as much as the subcommittee, the other board members who are not on the policy subcommittee, they have voice in, as we approve policy and, but they're trusting us to kind of get in the weeds on that. We're trusting I didn't realize it was half and
Yes.
half.
Yeah, I
Like
noticed
that.
that
So,
earlier, too. Yeah, look at
and then we have, the subcommittee on community engagement, we're trusting them to do the analysis, to kind of do the legwork, to say, you know what? We need to continue to engage our community. Here's our recommendations on how to do that. And we say, okay, we're gonna give that a try. So, but that won't be codified in resolution. And never has been. It has always come from a recommendation from the subcommittee to say, hey, let's try this. Let's sign up for this. Let's do this. So, and then, as Laura said, an evaluation. Is this working? Is this meeting intended results? Is us going out and doing those things allowing us to engage with the community, in a way that we've designed? So, I think,
And I was just, I'm looking at, not, I do this, but I just want to make sure that we're not hindering people from wanting to even be on the board because they feel like they couldn't do all of the different things that this board is saying that they should be doing. And so then we kind of leave out people from being elected to a position where they could be really helpful. And so that's kind of where I was thinking, was like, I'm not a mom with a kid in the school. You guys all are. And so, except for you no longer, and then you're leaving. So, you know, in all that, I just kind of think through, who do we have on the board? And yes, it's if you're here a lot, it's probably easy, but I'm actively involved in my church, and we have groups, and we lead a group, and so my evenings become very booked. And I do make accommodations, obviously, for being on the board, but those are things that are important to me, too.
Yeah, and just, I'll get to you 1 second. I think it's an important thing to note that this is a commitment. I think anybody who doesn't, and as Superintendent Stenvick said in her, comments earlier about the role of a board member, there's a lot that happens that's not at this board table, right? There's 3-hour work sessions.
Right.
There's subcommittee meetings. There's our randomly scheduled subcommittee that we're gonna, have. There's things that happen. There's convocation that we attend and graduation and, different events. I honestly
Conferences.
think. What's that?
Conferences.
I honestly think, and I think to Michelle's point, in order to be an effective board member, we have to experience what's happening in this district. And we don't get that experience simply at the board table. And I think we have to experience what's happening in the community that we serve, and we have to experience what's happening in the district. And I don't think you can be an effective board member if you don't. If you're not in the school at some point for something, if you're not actively engaging in seeing what's happening in the schools, it could be a tour of the schools. It could be, greeting buses on the first day of school. It could be, there's so many ways that people around their schedule can be involved. But I think it's critical for a successful board member to be present on some level during their term as a board so that they can, with their own eyes, witness what's happening in the district that they're serving. So, Jessica.
Thank you for that. I agree with all of that. I just wanted to note what I heard from your report is really a couple of things, right? So it's the activities that we commit to as board members to advance the goals of governance, of community engagement, but it's also what those goals are. And I don't want to lose sight of that, because you're talking about bringing forward a revised resolution for us, which is really laying out, here are the goals of the board as a whole when it comes to community engagement. And those goals have shifted in the last 5 years, and rightly so. I think we all agree with that. So from my perspective, I'm looking at that as like, that's what's leading then the commitments in service of those goals, and not the other way around. So it's not that the most important thing is that we're checking off that we attended events. It's that attending these events, engaging with the community outside of this building, is advancing the goals of our governance as a board and of our community engagement work. And so, to me, that's the most important piece that I heard. So when that comes forward in our Friday packet and we're looking at that, like, that's what I hope that we can all develop some clear consensus around, is what are our priorities when it comes to community engagement? What are we trying to accomplish? And then, what are our commitments to attending things in the community? They're one way of being in service to those goals. And maybe there are other ways that we'll talk about as a board, or that we commit to as individual members in service of those goals. But for me, it's the goals that are leading the activities and not the other way around. So I just wanted to emphasize that, because That's what I heard, and that's how I'm going to be thinking about the proposal going forward.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you all. So we'll look forward to information coming in our packet and future action item as we define goal.
Thank you so much.
Perfect. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Good work.
All right, moving on to our one action item today. It's the opposite of what we've been doing. So we have a building capacity action item. Superintendent Stenvick.
Thank you, Chair Mueller, members of the board. This evening, I'm here seeking approval to reopen kindergarten to open enrollment at Highland Elementary. You know, weekly, we continue to look at the numbers, and for context, kindergarten is really crucial for historical or enrollment over time, right? So if we have a very small kindergarten class, there's implications for the next 5-6 years, right, for that class. So I really like to honor and listen to our school administrators, and so Principal Janke reached out to me and is concerned about the low numbers in kindergarten and is requesting that it be reopened to open enrollment.
All right, so may I please have a motion to approve the reopening of Highland Elementary Kindergarten to open enrollment during the 2024-2025 school year or until the enrollment numbers increase to near capacity?
So moved.
Laura, and a second.
Second.
Second by Mary. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, move on to board topics. Anybody have any board topics? Mary?
I just want, so to piggyback off of community engagement, want to make sure that everybody knows that there is a forum tomorrow night for school board candidates. It's a great opportunity for people to come in and ask their questions and have their concerns heard, and also to hear everybody's vision as what they would bring as a candidate to our school board. So that will be here in our district center at from 6 to 7:30, and we are the physical host, but this is a forum that's put on by the local teachers union, Local 710. So should be a lot of fun, and looking forward to seeing folks and hearing questions and answers. So
Will it be streamed and also recorded?
Oh, it will all, great question. Yes, it will be streamed and also recorded and should be uploaded relatively soon after, probably sometime within the next 24 to 36 hours on the school YouTube page is where I found previous ones, so.
How exciting.
It's almost like you practiced that.
I did not, no, that was not at all practice. That was just me being a ham because it's 7:49.
That was pretty funny.
Yep. Thank you. Any other board topics?
I don't have one, but I have a comment.
Yes.
Okay, I love how engaged we all are here. I love the discussion around the table. I love all the viewpoints that everybody outlays and how we can all work through them. I've been on the board for a lot of years, and I've really never seen this level of involvement and participation. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Thank you, Laura.
Excellent. I think there, like, as you start your new board meeting, I think we should add an agenda item of like board history with Laura.
Love that. Laura's Corner. We got
Oh my
Laura's
gosh,
Corner.
Laura's Corner, yes.
in 2005.
Somebody somebody set up a meeting with Emma and Laura.
Love
Well,
that.
you know, I mean, way back in the day, we had a straight table up here. Okay, well, here's the funny thing. I couldn't see the board. And it was like going like this, trying to see, I couldn't see the presentation. So that's why we have the TV.
Oh, there you go.
Laura's Corner.
Laura's Corner.
Laura's Corner.
Sorry. Thank you,
A
Laura.
new moment, a new moment.
I do appreciate that. And I do think that, there are a lot of boards out there that can't have difficult conversations or can't listen to other people's viewpoints and have that discussion. So I'm glad that we can. So,
Absolutely.
okay. Michelle?
I have more of a question. about the law conference stuff. Are we gonna get more information on dates? I thought I wrote it down maybe somewhere, but I remember you saying some.
First one is September 20th.
And
The second one's
November
in
8th.
November
There it
8th.
is.
November 8th.
The main
okay.
one is November 8th.
Gotcha.
And Stephanie and I check the website every day, and it keeps saying like, register soon, register soon. So those of you who are confirming with Stephanie that you want to attend,
Gotcha.
one or the other. And then as the year goes on, we get more announcements for other law conferences. So those are the two that we know of right now.
Okay.
I plan on attending the conference on November 8th
Yeah.
at the Earl Brown Center.
As do I.
And so, yeah, if,
Oh, that's right around the corner.
Yeah.
September 20th, though.
Yeah.
No, I meant it's like literally around the corner.
Oh, around the corner.
sounds geographically correct.
I was like, it's.
Oh, board.
It's interesting.
well,
the time.
That
Sometimes these things are
location,
like,
you know,
oh, down in Mankato.
I've taught at a CPA Society event there, and it is so, it's actually quite nice, but it's really hard to, like, there's a lot of space, and you're up there, and it's just like, it's wide.
Turns out I did write it down, I just didn't know to go to November.
And
I
make sure,
go there and it's already there, so.
make sure to RSVP with.
Yeah, please let Stephanie know a date. And as Superintendent Stanvick said, I mean, this is a goal that kind of takes us, it's not year-end, like calendar year-end goal. So
Yep.
if this doesn't work for you, that she will update additional opportunities.
It's funny, I already had the September 20th off,
And I think
but I'm
Laura-
not scheduled for that
I
one.
would say Laura
so.
was going to attend both of them, so. Any other board topics?
You know me.
All right, we will adjourn our meeting at 7:52.